Shalom from Jerusalem, and this week is the last week of counting of OMER, the Sphira, the time between Pesach and Shavuot, and this is the week of Malchut. Malchut is kingdom, and archetype is King David. So the concept of Malchut is an emerging property, something that emerges out of interaction, out of connection of people, events, influences. So it's really an emerging effect. Well, let me give you a few ideas. For example, let's say we build a city. So people build a house, another house, another house, another house, and all of a sudden you realize that you can't dump your garbage next door because the next door neighbor, and to take garbage is already too far. So what we do is we all of a sudden hiring somebody collects the garbage. So you see, out of the complexity comes a new job, something new creation, right? And then of course we build more streets, we build lights. We realize somebody has to deal with all that. So what we do is we vote for a mayor. So mayor is a melech. He has been voted by the members because we need him, and he has a certain authority to do jobs. So again, it's something emerged out of the complexity. Two people get married, the marriage itself, the interaction in the marriage, it's a new entity, if you wish, right? When you have a kid, you have a family, it's something emerged out of the interaction of all the members. That's what the really Malchut is all about. It's a merging effect out of the complexity within the system. So when we talk about Chesed Sheba Malchut, then we have not only to build this Malchut on kindness, which is true, but on reality, which is, let's look at what happened in Torah. Tell us in history that the first society, which was before the flood, tried to actualize their potential, all the potential, and they didn't care about the relationship, and that was a disaster. So after that there was another extreme, and that's a Tower of Babel, where now the strong man comes and he says, we're gonna all create society based on one idea. And so again, the relationship, the humanity was dropped because of the homogeneity, because of this one idea. We still see it in the societies. There's some extremes of the societies where everybody was self-developing your own potential and so on, and another totalitarian groups. It doesn't have to be a society, it could be a cult, right? So that everything on this idea, and again the humanity, the differences in people, really, all those important things that gets lost. So in a person, it's a question, is that again, am I building this malchus, everything around my soul, my essence, or who is another melech, who is pretends to be, wants to be a king and really dictator? It's really my ego. So what am I really? Who am I serving? Who is in charge? Who am I building things around? Is it my egotism, or is it my essence? And here, you have a different, a lot of things. Is my talent serving me as a person, or I'm serving my talent? So I'm sacrificing relationships, I'm sacrificing a lot of things, right, in order to serve my talent. And the talent becomes a demigod. That's very important. Another thing is that personalities build on reality. I have to remember history. I have to remember history when it comes to looking at the development of countries, societies, so otherwise things get very unclear. People today, they don't understand the history of Israeli-Palestinian conflict, so they say this guy shoot here and this guy shoot here. So if you don't remember how the whole thing started, you have absolutely no idea what's going on. But when it comes to personality, again, the sages tell us that you don't cut yourself off, especially when people come to religion, or people decide, even people being religious, realize how you grew up. Take those parts, take this history, and that's what Tshuva is all about, is going back and really transforming every part, not cutting it off, because that's what people have tendency to do, and people, even religious, who had not such a proper upbringing, has a tendency to ignore what really happens to them in the childhood, and sort of speak, like cut it off. But that's not tshuva. That's a proper tshuva, is really going back, realizing what happened, transforming, integrating those parts. So that's what's important. Now, when true chesed means that person really understands and integrates more and more that he is a soul, and soul is created, his soul is created by God, being as good as any other soul, and again, the worldview, remembering that people very often look at the world as an atheist. They look at the world as an atheist, that person is born and that's where the life starts, and the person dies and that's where the life stops, and then they turn to God and they say, how could you do this, this and this? But if you turn to God, then you have to adopt the spiritual model. Spiritual model says that life does not start at birth and does end up in death. And so if something happened to a soul during this lifespan, that's how you have to look at it. It's a big difference. Now, when it comes to the Gvura Sheba Malchus, we talk about borders. We talk about putting proper borders and proper control. A lot of times we feel not in control, and again, it depends of how we look at the world. Are we the only one controlling the world, or there is God who loves us, who controls things we cannot control? So this connection and actual relationship with God create either security and calmness in us, or creates constant insecurity, because there's so many things we're not in control about, right? That really makes us nervous. That's something that we really need to work about when we talk about Gevura Sheba Malchut. And learning to control things that we really can control. This is also a very important undertaking in terms of emotions and so on. Now, when we talk about Tiferet Sheba Malchut, we talk about the beauty, and we talk about balance, creating a balanced relationships, and here again, one of the problems that we have is when we don't feel in control very much, timing, hurrying all the time. There are people who just hurry all the time. Coming down, relaxing, finding balance in yourself, finding balance in your relationships. That's what it is. You see, there are different voices comes to us, and the different voices tell us that you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to act this. Learning what comes from a soul, from what Yetzer Tov, what we call the desire to do good, versus the voices of our ego. This is a very, very important learning, because once you learn what comes from the right voice, then you know that this is priority. That's what you need to act on. When you realize that the voices come from fear, from tension, from darkness inside of us, this is the voices of HaTorah, and this is the voices that we either needs to be ignored at the time or dealt with, but dealt with very, very different. Now, when we talk about Netzach, we talk about values, that whatever it's a personality that has to be built on values, whatever it's your family needs to build on values, so that really these people become goal-oriented when they have a proper values, and that's what the work of the Netzach is all about. When we talk about Chod, we talk about bright personality, and there's fear of failure or fear of losing, fear of rejection. That's what interferes with us really expressing ourselves. If the problem is with the sword, then we become dictators within our own family, and have to have open connections to people, to God, to ourselves. And Malchut Sheba Malchut is sharing the sharing itself. So, from Jerusalem, Shalom Shalom.